It's often believed that history is a politically convenient version of the truth. The history we know is what the historians have written. And how much of that is true and how much of that is not, we never know. Toastmaster of the day, Toastmasters of the day, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Today I want to take you all through an event in the Indian history which we all have learned, and to see whether we know the truth or not. The time is 326 BC. The place is the banks of the river Jhelum. There stood two powerful kings locked in battle. On one side was Alexander, a Macedonian, with his army of 41,000 men, Macedonian soldiers, Greek cavalry, Balkan and French, Persian fighters. On the other end was King Puru, Porus, as we all know, with his army of 20,000 men and 2,000 strong fighting elephants. Puru was a very tall man, grand in stature, measuring all of 6 feet and 7 inches. As he stood or mounted his elephant, he looked like a mountain in front of his enemies, and that scared them. What followed was the bloodiest battle of our times on the banks of the river Jhelum. Let's take a peek into this. What happened there, to understand what the historians tell us is true or not. Alexander, young man, 25 years of age, had already conquered a great part of the world and had defeated the mighty Darius of Persia. Having stabilized his position in Persia, he was driving his army to move forward and to conquer India. He was right there at the doorsteps, knocking and pressurizing his army. Let's go and let's get them. What stood between him and his dream were two rivers, Indus and the Jhelum. Building boats with the help of craftsmen, he crossed Indus and camped on the banks of Jhelum, waiting for the opportune time to cross and attack the other side. On the other side was King Puru, already and waiting for him. With his wide army, his battalions of elephants, he also camped on the other side, waiting for Alexander. As each one waited for the other, patience was running out. The rumors were floating around. The Macedonian soldiers heard about this herd of elephants that were waiting for them. The mammoth animals whose wrath they did not want to face. They heard about stories of how these animals in the battlefield created havoc, picked up soldiers and flung them across the battlefield, crushed men and material as they moved forward. This created fear in the minds of the Macedonian soldiers. Also, they heard about the long, special bows that the archers of Puru use. 2 meter long, standing as tall as men. They had the capability of launching long arrows at the enemy, killing more than one soldier at one shot. This was something the soldiers feared. Not to talk about the violent nature of river Jhelum, which they had to cross to get to the other side. Now, sensing this, Alexander, the great strategist that he was, summoned his generals, and he said, "Fear not, my men. I will not bring you here to sacrifice you in India. I've got a plan that will work. I've got a plan that will take us to the other side without the enemy noticing us. We do not cross here where Puru is waiting for us. We march 17 miles up north and we will cross the Jhelum where Puru does not expect us. So did they. On a stormy, dark night, the army was assembled together and they marched up north to cross the river at a spot where Puru did not expect them. But King Puru, being the smart man he is, had pickets planted all along the banks of the Jhelum. His pickets picked up the men who were crossing. As the day dawned, Puru got information from his pickets that Alexander has crossed. He called his men and said, "Fear not, the enemy is within our reach. We want him where we actually need him. He's on our right, so let's go and get him." So the entire army, with its battalions of elephants, moved towards Alexander to meet him halfway. As these two great armies met, men killed men, men killed animals, and animals crushed men. Blood flowed like water on the banks of Jhelum. Every man there could not understand which is the river and which is blood. As these two mixed together, it was catastrophe. This war was so violent that Alexander lost his horse, Bucephalus, in the war. Bucephalus was slayed down by an arrow by the enemy. This is the first time in the history of his campaign that anyone has ever got so close to Alexander, breaking the fortress that his bodyguard had built around him, let alone slaying his own mount. This forced Alexander to dismount and stand on the ground to fight. In front of him was Porus, mounted on his gigantic elephant, standing there and looking down at Alexander. Ladies and gentlemen, we are told by historians that Alexander won the war that day. And he magnanimously returned the kingship to Porus before turning back and returning to Persia. One question. Why would Alexander, a man known for his ruthlessness of decimating all his enemies, just give away his dream? Why would he just return what he had won, sacrificing life and cattle and men? That's what the historians say. It is often said that Puru, wounded in war, stood before Alexander. And Alexander asked him, "Oh Puru, how would you like to be treated?" And Puru, in a voice filled with pride, and his head and eye looked up and said, "Like one king would treat another." So was the story. That is what made Alexander give away the kingdom to him. Do you think this can be true? This fictional incident is often touted to exhibit or to propagate the warrior spirit of Alexander and the sense of honor of earth. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave it to you to decide what is right, what is wrong, what is true,